a Japanese film based on the novel by Mori Ogai starring Takamine Hideko. Wild Geese 1953. This novel was written by Mori Ogai, a literary figure of the Meiji period, between 1911 Meiji 44 and 1913 Taisho 2. He lived a short life of 60 years from 1862 to 1922, but studied in Germany for 5 years from 1884 Meiji 17, focusing on hygiene. In this novel, a student named Okada travels to Germany, which I think represents Mori Ogai. Therefore, like the Izu dancer, it is assumed that the novel describes how Mori Ogai, a student named Okada, fell in love with a mistress before traveling to Germany. This is a masterpiece directed by Toyota Shiro, a master of literary films, who adapted the novel from the novel by literary figure Mori Ogai, depicting the caged mistress, the snake-attacking Takamine Hideko, her loan shark husband Tono Ijiro, and Akutagawa Hiroshi, a brilliant medical student studying in Europe with a strong literary flavor. It's a masterpiece that makes you vividly feel the fate of a woman living in the Meiji era, not that long after the Edo period. Now let's get into the explanation. This movie is set in a time when migratory birds were flying in the Tokyo sky. As you listen to the explanation, you'll understand why the novel is titled Wild Geese. Osan, Idachako, an acquaintance of Otama, Takamine Hideko, is talking to Otama, who is making candy, about her second marriage in rapid succession. Once you say concubine, that's the end of it. The man had a child and his wife died, so accepting that husband's care is the same as asking him to marry her. But there's the matter of appearances. She was in such a backwater and suddenly let into a mansion, so she said, "What's the big deal? You get it, right?" She's a very sensible person. And what's more, she owns a fine kimono shop in Hamamachi. It's not like you two, where both mother and daughter are against it. Otama, you made a mistake before, didn't you? So, you won't be able to go wherever you want to. Once a woman is injured, misfortune follows her. I'm sorry, I'm a nice person, so I say things that are hard to say. But you have someone who prepares the food and makes sure your father's livelihood is stable, so there's nothing to cry about, right? Isn't that right, Otama? Even your father has such a good daughter, so he doesn't need to work hard selling candy. He's getting older, after all. He seems to have gotten really weak lately. Yes, Otama replies, with a smile. Osan says he can't run the candy shop for much longer, so Otama has to think about herself, you know. Besides, making your father's life easier is what it means to be a filial son. I'm not saying anything bad, so why don't you just come and see him once? You can't go wrong by just getting a nice meal around Okada. Anyway, leave it to me. This talkative old woman is really annoying, saying what she wants to say after talking for 3 minutes without letting Otama speak, and then leaving. Osan immediately goes to the house of Suezo Tono Ijiro, the man who will become the husband of the mistress that Osan told Otama about, and hears the loud voice of his wife Fatsune, Harabe Kimiko, threatening her child, saying, "Look, you've spilled the rice again. If you spill rice, you will become a beggar." Osan tells him with a smile that it went well. When Osan says that this will clear all my debts, Suezo says that it's too early. Now we know what Osan is thinking. Introducing a mistress means that you don't have to pay your debts, so it's not surprising that Osan is so enthusiastic about introducing her to a husband. Osan continues, they agreed to a meal at Matsujin in Okada, and I made it seem like Suezo runs a kimono shop with a nice store in Hamamachi. Suezo reacts that she shouldn't lie so much, but deep down he is probably happy. Then, as he is saying that his wife has been dead for a long time, his wife appears and he quickly changes the topic. She says that she should have paid off the debt a long time ago. She is the most talkative old woman in the world when she talks. She was probably trying to tell Suezo that he lied and said that his wife had died a long time ago. So, tomorrow is 6 o'clock. Suezo confirms that they probably know. His wife hears that the debt is due at 6 o'clock tomorrow, but it turns out that the dinner party at the large restaurant Matsujin is at 6 in the evening. How long will his wife Fatsune be wearing her hori coat? He says that there is no need to wear such a thing when you are at home, and that you should be a little more selective, and then goes on to say that she will wear an apron, and that it will get dirty. It is easy to see from this conversation that things are not going well between the couple. Suezo is annoyed at how noisy she is. Next, Atsune asks, "What's that old woman here for?" It's an excuse for paying back the money. How shameless, I hate her. He nods and says the same thing to avoid any problems between the couple. But Atsune and Osan are a match for each other, as they are both full of complaints. She continues to say, "Put on your apron." Suezo is not to be outdone, and replies, "Why don't you comb your hair once in a while?" "What are you going to do about Ashige Kikuchi Yoko?" Suezo's maid. "There's nothing I can do about it. I'm a loan shark hated by everyone, and if I don't pay it back, I'll take the cloth away from you," he replies. "That's ridiculous," Atsun says. "I borrowed this from a kimono shop." Ashige, who has been listening to this conversation, says she can use it for interest and rolls the cloth over. Oho sympathizes with Ashige and tells her that it's a terrible thing to do, that she is a single mother with 5 children, but she retorts that he shouldn't interfere in her business. This is Otama's house. As she wipes herself down with a towel, her father Zenkichi, Tanaka Izo, asks if she just wants to meet him. Is his wife still alive? Otama replies that she is. This is another lie on Otama's part. She has told at least 2 lies, that he is already running a kimono business and that his wife has passed away. It is clear that Otama's top priority is finding a way to avoid having to pay back her debts, rather than Otama's happiness. She really is an old woman with a dirty heart. Otama applies a medicated patch to her father's body, a popular ointment used to ease the pain. Her father reflects on the misery of his previous marriage, saying, "I was surprised when my first husband brought home a child. When you jumped into the well and tried to kill yourself, I thought I would die with you." This is a novel set in the Meiji period, so I imagine that marriage was extremely difficult in the social climate of the time. So I think it would be a big mistake to think that Otama's experience is one of the few cases. Divorce rates are increasing considerably today, but it's natural that divorce rates were higher at the time. However, the divorce rate was extremely low because women had a strong sense of patience and public image. It is reaffirmed that it was a time when it was difficult to start and maintain a family. This is reflected in Otama's words. No matter how much you think about it, things will be the way they are meant to be, and it shows in Otama's face. Her face is sad. Tonight is the evening of the arranged meeting with the husband of the fake kimono shop owner at the large Japanese restaurant. The voices of many reunions singing the school song can be heard. When Suezo arrives at the restaurant, Osen, who works there, compliments him by saying that he looks like a ripe peach. Suezo goes into the room where the school song is being heard and tells a man named Ishiharu Naoki Akira that it has been about 10 days since he last paid off his debt, and that he should pay it back as soon as possible. The fact that he is pleading for his debt to be paid back, even though today is the day of the arranged meeting, is proof that he is quite the money-grubbing scammer. Kimura Ono, Jukichi, who is at the reunion, is reading his colleague Okada Akutagawa Hiroshi, and the two go out to the garden to talk. However, his colleague calls him back, saying that the loan shark has gone home and that he should come over here. While listening to the school song, Otama waits for Suezo to arrive, but since her father rarely comes to the restaurant, he has already picked some delicious food. Osen tells her father random things, such as asking Suezo to find a house for her father. She is working to make sure that Otama agrees to the marriage. This is the house that Suezo has rented so that Otama can live on her own. It seems that Suezo has come to make a shelf to put things on using the boards he bought to repair the house. This means that she has agreed to become a loan shark's mistress. It's a movie, so anything can be said, but I can't imagine how the combination of Tono Ijiro and Takamine Hideko came about. Takamine Hideko has become his second wife, born from power and money. Tono Ijiro, or rather Suezo, picks up Otama when she tries to put things on the shelf, and puts the things he has picked directly into her mouth. Uma, a Dajiri Mickey, a maid, peeks in from outside and is surprised. Suezo is happy to have found the concubine he has been after, and brings Otama a bolt of cloth, asking her if it looks good on her and if she likes it. When Otama looks happy in the mirror and tells her the truth that she must have bought something nice, she asks if she brought something from the store, and Suezo is forced to lie and say that he cannot take it out too many times because if the storekeeper finds out, he will be found out. Suezo has forgotten that he must go along with Otama's lie. While cleaning, Suezo tosses some money to the maid Uma, who he finds annoying, telling her to go take a bath. Otama locks the door from the inside and starts to close the door when they are alone. Otama's father comes to visit her new home to check on her, but Suezo is there too, so he has no choice but to return home immediately. When he returns, the maid asks him if he has come home early and if his daughter has been out. As a father, it's only natural that he would be curious about what kind of life Otama is living. When Suezo returns home late at night, Atsun, who had been awake on purpose, speaks to him. Atsun says that she has started to earn a little money, so she has taken a mistress and goes out to have fun? She yells in rebellion. Suezo pretends not to notice. But his plan is to leave his wife and go to his mistress Otama's house as a reason to remarry. Although the film does not reveal what the marriage registration is like, it is only natural that Otsune would be angry. Suezo moves to the living room and calls out Tsune in a loud voice, demanding that he return the many bolts of cloth that Oshige had left behind, saying that he cannot stand to let such cheap items be used to pay off one half of his debts. And at this point, Suezo turns the tables. He has a precious wife like you, so he could never even once dare make a move on another woman. Because women fall in love with men who act like you, I'm worried, Otama says, but she uses the proverb I am the most precious Buddha to persuade him and make him forgive her for her affair. This proverb means that the wife is the most adorable. This technique and the technique for getting a mistress are quite impressive. A woman named Osada Miyake Ganiko, who lives next door to Otama's house and works as a tailor, appears. She brings Otama with her Oshige and tells her that she has many children and works at a kimono shop, and that she is touched by her situation and can't help but think of it as something that doesn't concern her. She has come to introduce Oshige to her and to ask him to buy a bolt of cloth for her. When Otama shows Osada the bolt of cloth she wants to have tailored, it turns out to be the same bolt that Oshige rolled to the floor at Suezo's house and Suezo took away from her, thinking it would be used to pay off his debts. Oshige's face goes white. There are many bolts of cloth with the same pattern, but Oshige never imagined that it was the one that Suezo had taken from him. When Suezo returned home, his voice was familiar, but he did not seem to realize it was Suezo. So Oshige and Osada went home. Suezo bought a small bird in a birdcage and showed it to Otama, who had never lived such a life before. Otama looked very happy. When Otama had come, she had a gloomy look on her face, but now she is lively. Suezo also looked delighted and happy when Otama showed him the hori coat she had made. When Suezo arrived, it was Uma's turn to take a bath. Otama also asked to buy some fillets of fish, but the fishmonger's wife refused, saying that she had no fish to sell to the loan shark's mistress. Uma went home, but the front door was locked and she could not get in, so she waited by where the children were playing. When Uma is called by Otama, she goes to the bathhouse and is told that only the maids of the mistress' household come to the baths at lunchtime, and that her husband is not a loan shark but a kimono shop owner, something that Otama does not know. Gradually, it becomes clear that Suezo is lying and is a loan shark with a bad reputation. Seeing Otama's gloomy face, Suezo is not one to ignore it, and when he asks what's wrong, she lies and says that she hasn't seen her father in a while and was wondering how he was doing. They start telling each other lies, and it's easy to see how the relationship between these two will gradually fall apart. It's just about to crumble like a castle made of sugar candy. When Otama says this, he says that he can take her, but if his wife finds out, she'll make a fuss, so he'll give up, and confesses that his wife, who was supposed to be dead, is still alive. Moreover, Suezo forgets that the fact that she's dead is a lie, so if he lies, he has to add more and more lies before they can agree on anything. It's just like the LDP's secret fund making. Otama also realizes this in an instant, and for the first time, she finds out that Suezo is not a kimono merchant, but a disliked loan shark, and that the news that he keeps a mistress has spread throughout town. There is no way Otama will ever find happiness like this. When Suezo is returning to his workplace, he says he is going to Hongo, and when asked if he is not in Hamacho, he hurriedly lies again and says he has been to many places. Right after Suezo leaves, Otama and her mother start talking to themselves, and Suezo goes out, talking to himself about what must have happened. In any case, it is wrong to try to repair a marriage that was solidified by lies. For Otama, it was a marriage that was orchestrated so that her debts would be forgiven. And Otama and Suezo's plans are also the result of them being two liars whose plans do not mesh. Otama meets her father for the first time in a long time, and tells him that what Otama and Suezo had said were lies. Otama says that she will not be fooled from now on, and her father worries that she might become a candy seller again to help his daughter financially, but Otama refuses. This part of the film gives a good understanding of the social background of the Meiji period. There were few types of jobs and workplaces, and women's suffrage was only granted in the 21st year of the war. Shortly after the war, the status of women at that time was so low that it is unimaginable today. When you see Otama's words and actions, you can't help but think that it was a time when women were nothing more than men's toys, and the extreme male superiority makes you angry. Along with all this, on the way home, Otama meets Suezo's wife. I also gasped when I saw this scene. They were both surprised. I knew they would meet someday. Otama seems to have realized that she is Suezo's wife, and goes home and closes the sliding door and hides. Otsune must have thought that this woman was a concubine. How will Otama find out that Suezo lied to her? The dozen or so girls who had come to Otsune's house to learn sewing saw the student Okada and others walking by, and all looked out of the room. Okada and Osada were part of the alumni association that sang the school song. Ashige, who happened to be visiting Osada's house, looked angry at Osada when she asked if there was anything she could help her with, showing her the scrap of cloth from the other day and saying, "You're wearing this cloth without knowing the grudge it holds. You're living a life of luxury." But the others are crying. Grabbing Osada by the collar, he vents his resentment, asking how she must feel to eat a meal every day, with such an innocent face as a mistress to a loan shark. This is how Osada sees her, and it is the path she chose, but it is not her personal fault. However, for someone in Ashige's environment, it is unbearable. Osada runs home as if fleeing, and immediately takes off the kimono that was called the kimono of grudge. She must have felt sorry, but humans cannot be equal in everything, such as what they wear, what they eat, where they live, and the size of their homes. Otama must have wondered why her life was always accompanied by suffering. While she was lost in her worries, about 20 students walked by, singing the school song. When Suezo returned home that evening, he found a torn parasol in the living room, and Otsune was sitting silently outside the mosquito net. Otsune poured out her thoughts. "It's fine to be with that beautiful woman. You gave Ashige's cloth to that woman, didn't you? I have a child and I have nowhere to go back to. What should I do?" This time, Otsune was very serious, and Suezo's expression changed, knowing that things couldn't continue like this. However, like last time, Suezo tried to persuade her by speaking gently, saying things he didn't really mean, like he was trying to be kinder to other men than before. Otsune, hoping to finally convey her feelings this time, grabbed him by the collar and said "damn it" in defiance. However, things like this can't be helped. It was all the result of Suezo's schemes. Suezo immediately goes to Otama's place. Otama's sewing teacher, Osada, advises her that it is not easy for a woman to make a living by sewing alone. This is probably because Otama had consulted Osada about quitting being a concubine and making a living by sewing. When Otama returns home, Suezo presses her, asking if she has been hiding something from him recently, but it is Suezo himself who is hiding something. Otama wonders why Suezo doesn't tell her first that he has been hiding something, but perhaps that is the nature of a Meiji-era woman? On her way home, Otama met Okada, a student, playing with a bird in a birdcage that was hanging outside. Otama is currently a mistress and is financially stable with no shortcomings, but she is not satisfied with being a mistress. I felt that the time had come for her to think about becoming independent and becoming a sewing teacher or quitting being a mistress. In the past, Otama would immediately respond when Suezo called her Otama, but recently she has become able to show a negative attitude, saying no, and the freshness of meeting a man wearing a student cap must have given her an indescribable sense of happiness. She must have looked at Okada, wondering why she had never met such a man before, and Okada also stared at Otama as he left. That night, Suezo came to Otama's house to take a nap, but when Otama tried to put on her hori, he said and stood up. He asked her if Otsune had come, but she had had a very scary dream. However, this is only what he brought upon himself for doing something reckless, so he should just keep having scary dreams and destroy himself. What do you all think? The reason he has scary dreams is because he lies, and he hates men who lie, he said, revealing his true feelings for the first time. It's a lie that he runs a kimono shop in Hamamachi and that his wife died a long time ago. He said that he came here because he heard that his wife was gone. Suezo began to tell the truth, saying that he was actually afraid that she would run away. Otama also revealed that she wished she had been born a man. There's no point in making excuses now, but Suezo had pocket money at university, and students called him Pocket Money, and he saved up a little money, which led to him becoming a loan shark. My life was about money, and I don't really know how it ended up like this. No matter what the world says, I've come to be honest with you. I've never had such fun. Otama has found meaning in life for the first time since living with you. Otama calls him Otama, but he doesn't pay her any attention. It's the same state of mind as Sawada Kenji's do as you please. Today, I'm repapering the shoji screens with the maid. However, a snake has gotten tangled in the birdcage, and the little bird is in danger, but no one is around. By chance, Okada, the student mentioned above, happens to be passing by and kills the snake with the knife the maid had brought for him, saving the bird. Both Otama and the maid are relieved. When Otama says that she saw him while they were chatting in the garden at the reunion, he says that it was unpleasant at the time, as a loan shark had shown up. Now that person is her husband. Otama must have thought that the students Okada and Suezo were like the moon and a turtle. The little bird in the birdcage is not only Otama, who is trapped and has no freedom, but is also in danger of being swallowed by the snake, and the snake represents Suezo, who swallows and kills Otama, a little bird. At the end, we learn that Okada, the student who was saved, is a wild goose, and I think he represents the migratory wild goose that flies anywhere in pursuit of a life of its own choosing. How do you all feel about this metaphor? Please look forward to the final scene. After he washed her hands at the entrance, it was a rainy night, so Otama took her umbrella to where Okada was sheltering from the rain. It was a simple conversation, with Okada saying that he would return the gift later, but it was an event that completely changed Otama's current state of mind. Having become the mistress of such a loan shark, meeting such a fresh man must have greatly cheered her up. The image of Otama walking with an umbrella in the rain at dusk with beautiful music playing is the real Otama. It reminds me of the beautiful scene of Takamine Hideko in 24 Eyes, pedaling her bicycle in a raincoat. What a terrible person. Otama was reluctant to break up with Okada, so she followed him, but to her surprise, she entered the so-called loan shark shop with a sign saying financial services. It was none other than Suezo who was there. Otama quickly hid herself, but in front of the shop she asked Okada to find out as much as possible about why he had entered the loan shark shop. Okada was on the verge of not being able to study abroad in Germany and Europe. If he passed the test, most of the funds would be released. So he negotiated with Suezo, asking for as much money as possible, but he was coldly told that he would only lend him half the amount he applied for, and that the interest for 10 days would be 3 yen and 30 sen, and that he would pay it back. Okada and Suezo had known each other since Suezo was a pocket errand boy at university, but Suezo, who put business first, had no room for understanding Okada's feelings and no compassion whatsoever. Since Okada would not lend him enough money, he went to a neighboring store that bought books at a high price and asked them to buy a rather thick medical book that was important to Okada. Otama entered the store to avoid being seen and pretended to look at the book. Otama gave the storekeeper money, saying that she would buy the book that Okada had bought from the student after he left the store. When Okada returned to the dormitory, he told Kimura about the snake, and criticized him for being so worried about the mistress, saying that it was clearly a romantic psychology from the perspective of a student in the arts field. Kimura explained that it was difficult for love to develop in the Meiji era, because people were living under the constraints of the Meiji era. However, he also said that it was either to follow those constraints or to break them. This is not just about love. This is Otama's father's house. She decided to take her father's advice that the best way to thank Okada for getting rid of the snake was to invite him to her house and give him a feast. The problem was that she could only invite him to a feast when that troublesome Suezo was not there. When he tells her not to lie to her husband, Otama rebels, saying that even husbands lie. When Otama lies and tells him that her wife has died, her father can only advise her to go with the flow, saying that there is no way to change things back to the way they were. Even when her father hears her honest feelings that she doesn't like her current life, he just says that she is happy with the way things are. On her way home from her father's house in the rain, Otama sees Otsune standing near the entrance with an umbrella and a disgusted look on her face. She is so shocked that she runs into her room and tells the maid to ask her master, who lives next door, to come quickly. When the master arrives, there is no one standing on the street. This dream must represent the psychology of a person who is hated by others. In response to the master's advice that it is difficult for a woman to survive in the world alone, Otama asks, "Are you telling me to continue this difficult life?" and tells him that she doesn't know how to solve the problem herself. What would you do? I am from a different era and I am a different gender, but I would stop this foolish life immediately. He will do whatever he can, or find a new job, and find a way to live on his own. One day Okada came to return an umbrella he had borrowed. Okada had just passed a test that would earn him a salary for his job as an assistant at a German university, and he was in a hurry to leave for Germany, but Otama was both happy and excited. He immediately picked up the book he had bought back and was about to hand it over, but he took his time as he had decided to put on makeup. Just then, Suezo appeared. Okada gave a slight bow, but Suezo stared at Okada with a suspicious look on his face, wondering what he had come here for and whether it was something to do with Otama. Suezo had made a strange assumption, as the futon had not yet been put away and the pillow was still there. He is a man with a low-level mindset. believing that just because he is like that, others must be like that too. Probably to save face, Otama pulled her kimono down a little to her shoulders, as if to ask him to put powder on the area. At first, Suezo reluctantly helps Otama put on powder out of obligation, but suddenly he puts his hands on her breasts and gets excited. On the way, Suezo says he has to go to Chiba for urgent business, and that he will not come home today and will stay the night. At that moment, when he pulls the dressing table, he sees Okada's thick medical book that he bought back. Suezo easily imagines that it is Okada's book and that Otama has bought it back with her money. Then, as the end of the year is approaching, she asks her father to give the money, leaves a suggestive message that she should lock the door properly and not let anyone into her room, and then she takes Okada's book and says that she will take it, so it's like Suezo has bought it back with her money. Otama must have been happy that this was the best chance she could have to treat Okada to a meal. After thinking it over, she advises her maid Duma to go back home and stay the night, as she had said that she wanted to see her mother. Otama prepares a lot of food to treat Okada as a thank you for getting rid of the snake, and goes to the hairdresser. She must have been really happy. Okada and Kimura suddenly pass the test, stay at the professor's house in Tsukaji, and say they will leave for Germany in 2-3 days. Kimura says they are like migratory birds. Yes, the title of this movie, Wild Geese, represents flying away to create a life of freedom like Okada, and contrasts it with Otama's life, which is constrained and restricted, as if she is stared at by a snake. It also has the meaning of encouraging Otama to live a life of freedom and flight like Okada. How excited Otama must have been as she waited for Okada. Her face was shining with life as she waited for him to open the front door. She heard a whistle and thought it might be Okada, so she approached and it was indeed Okada. At that moment, Otama, or rather Takamine Hideko's smile was so cute that she could try it. It was $1 million smile. However, she noticed that her best friend Kimura was accompanying her, and she wondered what to do. Okada took his hat off Otama and left with Kimura without saying anything. Why didn't Otama say anything to her and ask her to eat the food she had prepared for her for a little while? Kimura told her that Otama had been staring at him, telling her that it was a terrible situation and that she should look back. Okada told her that she had been staring at him, but Okada tried to move forward without worrying, saying that she had a world of her own. What do you think? I wish Okada had spoken to her a little more at this point. When Otama returned home disappointed, Suezo the snake was waiting for her, with a sharp look in his eyes. Otama put away all the food she had prepared and asked why she hadn't scolded him. He said that there was no reason to scold her, that she had just returned the money for her books, that she was going to Europe, that everyone was leaving, and that she was a poor student, and Otama ran out as if she had made up her mind. Of course, it was to meet Okada again. That's why I asked why she hadn't spoken to him then. Time passes by, and no one waits for people to hesitate. She calls out to a student walking outside, saying Okada-san, but it turns out to be Kimura. When Kimura says that Okada often spoke of her, Otama's eyes sparkle. She must have felt heavenly joy that such a brilliant person, recognized in Germany, has taken an interest in her, even though she was someone no one would talk about. She must have thought that she could do it too. It must have been a moment when Otama felt happiness for the first time in a long time. Kimura asks if she'll wait here, and she says, "No, please give me this book," and hands him the book that she has passed back and forth so many times. The reason the book goes back and forth so many times is because Otama bought it back from Suezo, who gave it to Okada to use as a source of funds. Is there any mistress who would do such a thing for a student? Okada will be beyond our reach. Kimura tells her that it's the time when he starts running straight down the path of a brilliant person. Is it okay not to meet her? She tries to help by asking if she can send her off with us, but she says no, excuse me, and goes home. So why did she run out of the house then? Before going home, she goes to the same fish shop to deliver a sea bream as a gift to Okada, and asks them to deliver it, but as soon as the landlady sees Otama's face, she changes her attitude. She asks them to deliver it to Okada's boarding house, but as she doesn't want to mention Okada's name, she asks them to deliver it to her home. She asks them to deliver it to the home of the loan shark's mistress. At home, Suezo is annoyed as he waits for Otama, who never comes home. When she comes home, Suezo sarcastically asks if they've met, and if they'll never see each other again if she goes to a faraway place like Europe. Otama replies that she doesn't want to say anything more. She tells him honestly that she has never once confessed her true feelings to him since she took care of him. Suezo asks if she has had enough and wants to quit, and she says he wants to play, but she can't play. She's just a lone shark who crawls around on the ground. This is my life, she whines. But the world isn't that easy, and it's obvious that she can't become a student's wife now. Even though he says that, Otama cries, telling herself over and over again, it's me, it's me, it's me. We have already heard Otama's thoughts at this point, and she must have wished she had been born a man. That in these times there are limitations, and that there is nothing she can do on her own. Just then, the fishmonger's wife brings a sea bream and asks for 70 sen. Suezo tells her that he can't pay that much money to a playboy and tells her to go home, but Otama pays it herself. Suezo kicks the fish away, saying that he never gave her the money to buy such a thing. He is a foolish man whose resentment and pain never end. She should quit being a mistress to such a man and run away immediately. Why should Otama become a victim of such a man? As expected, Otama says she's had enough of him trying to tie her down with only money, and tries to go outside, but Suezo desperately stops her. However, Otama goes outside and tries to find out where Okada is. Okada is speaking German, and says he is going to stay the night at the professor's house, and will soon be leaving for Germany. Okada leaves in a horse-drawn carriage with several seats. As Otama listens to the bells of the carriage Okada is riding in as he leaves, she watches the migratory geese on the pond. The geese fly away one by one. Otama can only watch them sadly. The geese's flight is Otama's hope, and also Okada's spirit. The film ends with Otama thinking how happy she would be if she could fly like the geese and like Okada. The movie ended with this, but what happens next is left to the imagination of the reader or viewer of the movie. I thought it would be nice if Okada wrote a letter to Otama from Germany, asking her to come to Germany and live together. What do you all imagine?